We live in a world dominated by fossil fuels. Since the 1800s, people have been using fossil fuels like coal, oil and gas in increasing quantities. But where do these fossil fuels come from? And how has the world become so dependent upon them? In this video, we will put fossil fuel use under the microscope. We will explore the impact that burning fossil fuels has on human rights and the environment, and our role in ensuring a just transition to a more sustainable future. Coal comes from ancient plants that lived in swampy forests millions of years before the dinosaurs. When these plants died, they sank into the swamps and were buried under layers of water, dirt and rock. Over millions of years, heat and pressure turned them first into peat and then into coal. Peat can still be found in wet areas of Ireland, especially in the Midlands. Oil and gas formed from tiny plants and animals that lived in the oceans millions of years ago. When they died, they sank to the seafloor and were buried under layers of sediment. Heat and pressure turned them into oil and gas. Sometimes these deposits are near the surface, but other times they're trapped deep under the rock, so we have to drill to reach them. The process of acquiring these fossil fuels, often referred to as extractivism, can have serious negative effects on people and the planet. Extractivism is focused on large-scale removal and export of natural resources for profit. Raw materials are usually exported straight away, often with very little benefit to the communities where the materials are located. Extraction often occurs on indigenous lands without proper consent and can lead to negative impacts on traditional ways of life. It can also cause serious damage to the environment. Turkana in northern Kenya is an extremely dry region where droughts are common and 60% of the population lives in extreme poverty. Oil was discovered there in 2012, but planned extraction by Western companies is expected to bring little benefit to local communities while causing serious environmental harm. Nadiko Alim is a pastoralist farmer from Kapeze in Turkana. The burning of fossil fuels is well known to have many harmful effects on people and the environment. It can cause air pollution and affect water supplies, often impacting low-income, indigenous and marginalised communities the most. It can lead to human rights violations, displacement, pollution and other health risks. Fossil fuels are also finite resources. They will eventually run out and are therefore unsustainable. But perhaps the biggest impact is the contribution fossil fuels make to climate change through the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is the process by which some gases, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane and water vapour, trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, which helps to warm the surface of the planet and make it a place where life can thrive. The greenhouse effect is a natural process. However, what the planet is experiencing now is an enhanced greenhouse effect, caused by increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases from the burning of fossil fuels. The climate crisis is also a human rights crisis, which is why we talk about climate justice. The climate crisis isn't just about the environment, it's also about people's rights and lives, especially in the global south.
So Trócaire is working with communities who are on the front lines of the climate and biodiversity crisis. And the communities that we are working with are experiencing drought, cyclones, flooding, storms, extreme heat, and this is causing massive impacts in their communities. People are losing their lives, they're losing their homes, their livelihoods, and it's pushing people deeper and deeper into poverty.
In Ethiopia, rising temperatures, unpredictable rainfall, droughts, floods and landslides are making life much harder. These climate problems are destroying farms and homes, making poverty and inequality worse. Recent disasters, like major floods in 2023 and 2024, and the deadly landslide in Gofa in 2024, have damaged hospitals, forced thousands of people to leave their homes, and caused outbreaks of diseases like cholera, malaria, and measles. Climate change is not just about the environment, it's about fairness, safety, and survival for millions of people around the world. In Honduras, droughts, heavy rain, rising sea levels, and coastal erosion are damaging farms, fishing areas, homes, and roads. At the same time, dangerous weather events like floods and storms are becoming more common and more severe. But the threats aren't just from nature. People who try to protect the environment and human rights in Honduras are also under attack. Between 2012 and 2023, 149 environmental and human rights defenders were killed, 35 of them since 2022. These events show how powerful companies and weak protections are putting both people and the planet at risk, especially those who stand up to defend land, water, and natural resources. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the United Nations body for assessing science related to climate change, is clear that the fossil fuel industry is driving the world further into climate chaos. 96% of oil and gas companies are exploring or developing new oil and gas fields across 129 countries. But there are alternatives to fossil fuels. Solar, wind, hydroelectric, and geothermal power are all examples of renewable energy. Increasing use of these renewable energy sources and moving away from fossil fuels is an essential step for a country to decarbonise its economy. Countries have made commitments to decarbonise, but for the most part are well off track in meeting their targets and reaching net zero by 2050. So, what needs to happen to reverse course on the increasing use of fossil fuels? To stop the rising use of fossil fuels, the world needs to work together. This is a global problem, so it needs a global solution. Right now, many governments are still supporting the fossil fuel industry by making decisions or passing laws that allow it to grow. This means fossil fuel companies often aren't held responsible for the damage they cause to the environment or to human rights. Even though countries agreed in 2015 at the Paris Climate Summit to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, current plans show that at the rate at which fossil fuels are being produced, this limit will be exceeded before 2030. Scientists talk about the global carbon budget. This is the total amount of carbon dioxide the world can release if we want to stay within the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. Wealthier countries in the global north are still using more than their fair share of this carbon budget. Some are even close to going into carbon debt, which means they have already used up the amount of emissions they should be allowed. In July 2025, the International Court of Justice the world's top court, said that countries have a legal duty to protect the environment from pollution that causes climate change. The court said countries must take action, work together, and be very careful about how their actions affect the planet. If a country causes harm, it may have to stop what it's doing, promise not to do it again, and fix the damage, depending on the situation. According to the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment, subsidies for fossil fuel production and consumption are delaying the shift to renewable sources of energy, violating the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. The failure of wealthy countries to reduce emissions, the expansion of the fossil fuel industry, and the high emissions of the global rich are putting humankind in jeopardy.
As a matter of existing international human rights obligations, states must urgently phase out fossil fuels, which are the main cause of climate change.
If countries are to uphold their obligations to achieving climate justice and protect human rights, Trocar calls for a number of actions that must be taken urgently. First of all, governments around the world should join the group of Pacific nation states, including Vanuatu, Tuvalu, and Samoa, that are leading on the proposal to develop a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. A robust and legally binding treaty would be a roadmap to end the expansion of new coal, oil, and gas projects and manage an equitable global transition away from fossil fuels and ensure a truly just energy transition in which no worker, community, or country is left behind. We need to stop using more than our fair share of the world's carbon limit and quickly move away from fossil fuels. Building new liquefied natural gas projects and data centers that use a lot of energy just makes things worse. Countries should ban new fossil fuel projects that slow down this change. We must stop investing money in fossil fuel production. And lastly, we need to introduce new sources of public financing that will help to meet our international climate finance obligations to the Global South and raise funds for a domestic just transition.
One of the key issues that we're focused on is the need for financing to deal with the losses and damages that are being experienced from climate change. So we know that the poorest countries in the world are experiencing massive devastation from climate change. We call this loss and damage. That's in the form of infrastructure being destroyed, people's homes being destroyed, people losing their livelihoods. These have massive costs. And so the poorest countries in the Global South are being pushed deeper and deeper into debt to respond to these climate impacts. Households are losing their whole income. These are some of the poorest families in the world. So they're paying the price and the cost right now for the climate crisis. For decades at the UN level and at COP, developing countries have been calling on richer countries to pay up for loss and damage. So what this means is a flow of money that will go from richer countries to the poorest countries in the world so that they can respond when these climate impacts hit. It is high time now that richer countries and corporations paid up for loss and damage.
Time is running out, but it is not too late to act. However, it will require coordinated action on a global, national, local, and personal scale to bring about a just transition away from fossil fuels. We know what needs to be done, and we know how to do it. What we need is the collective will to put human rights and the environment ahead of profit and break our reliance on fossil fuels.
It's important for young people to take action, to take climate action, because if we don't take action now, trust me, we are not going to have a future, because no matter how the world can flame it, developing country, global north, global south, young people are vulnerable at a similar extent.
As UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in his special climate address at UN HQ in July 2025.
That world is indeed rich, but it won't happen on its own, not fast enough, not fair enough. It is up to us. We have the tools to power the future for humanity. Let's make the most of them. This is our moment of opportunity, and I say.